All right, people, so we're back on the inside, back on Breaking Dawn. We are 6 minutes past the hour of 7 o'clock this morning. For the next 15 minutes, we are joined by Dr. Laird, Dr. Kamu Laird, clinical psychologist at Elder Associates Limited, and we will be talking about the pressures of exam. All right, exam time for a lot of young people, teenagers, and even younger. You have the SEA happening in a little bit. That puts a lot of pressure on the younger generation, the younger of the generations. And then you have the CSEC and so on that takes place as well, other exams. So we want to say good morning to Mr. Laird. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Nice,
Thanks for
man.
having me.
Beautiful. Good to have you, man. Interesting topic as well, because like we were talking during the break, and I was telling you, you know, exams, the pressure of the exam, does it come mostly from the parent? Do we want to start with that aspect of things? You want to start there?
Sure. I mean, well, I wouldn't. It would be difficult to, say if it came directly from the parent or if
Right.
it is from society, if it is from all expectations on our own that they put on their own selves. But it's probably a conglomerate of all of those things.
Okay.
Right. So it's most likely the parent, your friends, yourself, the school, etc., etc. So, I mean, one of the main things that we want to be able to do is kind of create a realistic view or thoughts about our ability, and from our parents as well. We want to be on board together to really understand what is my realistic opportunity to occur, right? And then we want to kind of reduce and educate about the anxiety that comes around it and educate the parent and the child about this anxiety. Some level of anxiety we would suggest is normal, but we want to be able to understand that it's not necessary. It doesn't help. It doesn't make things better. It doesn't make success. It doesn't drive us to study or work harder. So there's that element of how we want to really prefer to feel about the exam, prefer to prepare for the exam, right? So those things are important to really have ourselves a clarity on, okay, I prefer to be more in control, I prefer to be confident, I prefer to be prepared, focused, and have that aligned with the parents' perspective as well.
You just said some of the anxiety is normal, which kind of caught me because, okay, when we're talking about anxiety, right? Of course, a young person, I always say, young people are expected to cope with certain things that even as adults, in our mature years, we struggle to cope with. And we expect
Correct.
that a 15-year-old, a 13-year-old, a 14-year-old, they're supposed to, you're supposed to be able to handle this pressure. Now from a parenting's perspective, how do you know what is normal anxiety as opposed to not normal, and
Well,
where you should be concerned?
I would say that it's not abnormal to think that I'm going to be a little not worried about my ability, or I might underestimate my ability, or my parents really want me to do the best that they can, and I'm pushing me to do the best and making sure, hey, don't forget you have to study today, you have lessons all
Right.
over the place every day. So I mean, all of these things create a level of anxiety. So when I say normal, I mean we would want to be considering that we would not expect the individual or the parent to just be happy. Oh, no problem. Let's go and do this exam. Everything's going to be fine. But we want to be able to educate the parent and the child about all of these types of feelings and behaviors and emotions that are going to overpower the family from January to June, right?
Right.
So we really want to be able to get both of them on board and understand how what would be the more healthy approach, what would be a more appropriate approach to managing anxiety and really having a better education about what anxiety is. Why does that occur? What happens when all of these things take place in terms of all of the symptoms of anxiety?
Okay. Um, from the SCA level, just going down to
Right.
the primary school level now. Every year, just coming back to the parent, right? And I've seen it, right? There is certain pressure that parents put on a child as young as 11 years old, or that they have to pass for this school or that school or the other school,
Right.
right? And sometimes it's like well, it's like the end of the world if this doesn't happen. In
Right.
some cases, right? Some cases the parents more emotional than the child. The child going through the process and, well, wherever is wherever, but the parent tripping off,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I mean,
Because they're
that's
not
why I was
satisfied.
suggesting. Sure. That's why I was suggesting to some extent you have more balanced and realistic expectations, right, for the parent,
Right.
and have that communication with the child about what we're trying to achieve.
Right, but
Right.
but does that not beg the question that maybe, I know, well, I mean, all of us, we took our exams, we studied, some of us cram, some of us, we have different methods that we used back in the
Yes,
day.
yes.
And now we're in the technology age where I think, I don't know if it's been more progressive or if we become a little more lazy in the sense that we could get the answer at the tip of the finger by just, typing up something and searching for it on Google or wherever, as opposed to actually going and doing the research and finding the answers, like we did back in the day. But, as we have progressed with technology, has that, you think, made it harder or easier in this time here?
Well, I think it's made it a little more challenging due to probably sometimes the parents' miseducation of how some of
Ah, boy.
the technology can be used.
Right.
Um, so mom, I have to go on my phone to get this, or mom, I have to research this. I don't understand this, so I'm gonna watch a YouTube video on long division, and perhaps the parent will just leave them to their own, and then go ahead and do that. But there may not be that communication and that clarity of how we can help together each other through this process. There's a huge gap, I think, from my experience, where the parent, there's always a lot of advice and talk and motivation and conferences and assistance for the child,
Right.
right? But the parent probably never gets that, right? So and that's a big issue, I think, for the whole societal element of exam taking in the Caribbean, where the parent needs a lot of support. The parent needs a lot of advice. What could I do to assist my child? What setting realistic expectations, fostering more open communication, being creating more healthy strategies for themselves and the
Right.
child. Maintaining some structured routines for each of them, because sometimes they take away extracurricular because they have to study, or so all of these things, they have to get up early for lessons, to drop their child to lessons,
Yeah.
and finding money to do these things. So there's lots of elements where I think the parents could be very much supported, and even to
Yeah.
some extent educated about what they can do to support their child even better.
Because I think one of the things that both child and parent have to understand is how to accept failure. I think we live in a society right now where when you fail at something, depending on like, I mean, we could bring the peers into this now, the peer pressure, and so on and so forth. I mean, all of that plays a role in anxiety. So when you don't know how to handle failure, you run into a bit of a problem, and it could cause you a lot of anxiety, especially if more pressure is put on you not even from the parent now, but from those who you call your friends or the people that you surround yourself with?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So I mean, I didn't hear the question. It broke up a little bit there, but I agree. The way we holistically try to support it needs to be with the child, with the teacher, with the parent, the community, the home. Really get, if it's granny, if it's uncle, finding ways to really build that camaraderie and that calm and that safe space for that child to say, "This is hard for me. I'm not understanding this." Instead of just, the child just trying their best and not really connecting with some of the strategies that maybe need to be implemented for them to be successful in that exam.
Right. And well, I was talking about, I know you didn't hear the question, I was talking about the aspect of peer pressure.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
So yes, I mean, peer pressure, it exists in all departments, right? So peer pressure could be for an adult, or as because the peer pressure still can exist for adults as well as for the child.
Right.
Yes, definitely. You're in class and you're seeing your another student doing better than you, and they don't look like they're studying, or why is it I not getting this topic and they're doing so well? So there's lots of, and so that's where the communication with my parent and my teacher comes in. I want to be able to feel safe, to be able to say, I don't understand this, I need help with this.
Right.
And then there's the peer pressure amongst the parents too. My child doing great, my child got this in her first practice test, and my child, and so the other parent is now adding more pressure onto their child because their child not doing as good as maybe the neighbor's child. So there's that element where there's a strong education for the parents and creating that environment of understanding, calm, and control and confidence within the family unit.
Right. Yeah, because that usually puts a little pressure on you. I remember when I was in school, listen, sometimes you're lying with your friends and things, but you really don't know who studied and who ain't studying. Everybody just appears to be having a good time. And then
Correct.
exam reach, and fellas that you didn't even think was real bookworms and studying and thing,
Mash it up.
they score in the 90s, and you trailing back down in the 70s or the 60s or lower, and you want to know, well, how that happened, because to your knowledge, you're with your friends and you're telling yourself, well, all of us, we hitting the movies together, we taking our life together, but that's what you see on the outside.
Correct.
But you never really know what's going on in the house and how
Correct.
an individual applies themselves. So I guess the advice there is always be at the top of your game, because you can't underestimate or overestimate anything in life. You just have to make sure that you cover your bases and do you, and and do the best that you could that you can do. But on that point too, do you think that we need to really take a look at the education system? Maybe the education system and the way it's designed puts a little too much pressure on students.
Well, I mean, I think that's been a conversation for many, many years. I think that was a conversation when perhaps both of us were doing
Yeah.
11 plus in those days, right?
Correct.
So it's a difficult response that you're requesting from me.
Right.
But I do think there's always an opportunity to fine tune or tweak different things within the educational system to support learning, right? And to support really being educated, and developing strategies to manage testing and overall exams, because it is just part, unfortunately or fortunately, is part of life, right? So it is something that we just need to assist the parents and the families and the children of how to manage, and that really boils right back down to anxiety. Anxiety, you could talk to a 7-year-old or 6-year-old and they might say, I'm feeling anxious. 20 years ago, they would have never even used that word. So it is really an opportunity to educate, what is anxiety and how can we manage it better, and to really even reach a stage where we recognize anxiety is not doesn't need to exist in our life. You know, there's no benefits to anxiety. Even though some people think there are no benefits. Anxiety doesn't help us in any way.
Yeah.
Right? So it's really about educating us on how to manage and how to, you know, reprocess the thinking and the reaction of our brains to be able to be more successful when dealing with stressful situations.
Yeah, I think we need to learn that on many levels, man.
Certainly.
Yeah, we have a serious problem with those kind of things, dealing with stress.
Certainly.
I mean, we could look at just little examples of road rage. Simple thing that's going on the road, and people just want to trip off because they just, you know, they're frustrated, they're stressed out, you know, they're anxious, you know, everybody just hot under the collar these days, you know what I mean? And I think it's just become part of the fabric of society. And the bad part of that is that when you get home in that frustrating mood that you're in, or you're stressed out from work or whatever, and you come now and you put out that energy, then that same stressful, frustrating energy on the child.
Yeah.
Is more damage that takes place there. So I think, you know, parent, child, everybody, I think we gotta learn how to deal with that. Any final words before we wrap? Any final advice?
Thanks for having me. But I mean, we want to be able to create an opportunity for the parent and the child and the family to really allow themselves to look at possible strategies for managing that stress within the home, right? So it doesn't always, as you said, it doesn't only have to revolve around exams, but it's really important to really look at themselves cognitively and, you know, mindfulness, you know, structured more time management and routines for the child and the family, you know, communicating about that and emotional support between each other, you know, opening that space to talk about those things, personalized self-care for each other, teaching what are the strategies for that, you know, just overall guidance and support, which professionals, elder associates, there are a few other people around that can really support that education and guidance along the way.
Right. Nice one. Well, Dr. Laird, thanks a lot for joining us, and all the best moving forward, man.
You're most welcome. Thank you. Have a great day.
Yeah, man. Don't get no anxiety today. Eh? Don't let certain people in the office.
No problem. I'll be mindful of that.
Yeah. Cool, man. Thanks.
Take care.
All right. So that is Dr. Kamu Laird, clinical psychologist at Elder Associates Limited. Always good to have them on.